you know, who robs places like this, you know? So let's go ahead and drive. Hey, move.
Target down. I think you blew off his arm. Shock and blood loss will take care of the rest.
Video games have recently taken the world by storm. Technology is everywhere. Walk outside and see how many people are staring blankly into a screen. Look around and watch for the parent who gave their child a cell phone so that their kid would leave them alone. Now, more than ever, children are playing mass amounts of video games and watching endless television programs on a daily basis. The age of technology is on a rise, and children are the main target audience. What happens when these realistic video games turn violent? Are we teaching today's children to be numb to acts of violence? Although there are many skeptical people regarding this topic, it has been found by many researchers that video games do not necessarily affect violence in children, but they can affect the aggressiveness of the child. Violent video games are oftentimes associated with violent actions and behaviors, but many experts have come to the conclusion that video games do not necessarily cause violence, but can increase aggression levels among children. The competitiveness of these violent games can cause children to have a hard time controlling their emotions. In the next video, I will show you an example of a child struggling to control their emotions due to playing lots of violent video games and having them taken away.
Мам, хотя
Все?
Надя!
Тише.
Надя! Что?
This may seem a little dramatic, but some kids really do behave this way because their aggression levels are so off the charts that their behavior becomes out of control and they can't do anything to avoid this behavior. Some experts believe that repeated play of video games creates emotional desensitization. The journal Media Psychology published a study by Andrew Gizzard called "Repeated Play Reduces Video Games' Ability to Elicit Guilt: Evidence from a Longitudinal Experiment." This article discusses how violent video games have the ability to cause emotional desensitization over a repeated period of time. In psychology, desensitization can be defined as the diminished emotional responsiveness to a negative, aversive, or positive stimulus after repeated exposure, meaning that this repeated action can cause kids to disaffiliate negative emotions with violent actions. This statement raises yet another question. Do kids who become desensitized to violence in video games also disaffiliate those negative emotions to violence in real life?
Police say Zachary Burgess, seen here in his booking photo, stole a pickup truck and went on a dangerous joyride Saturday night in Baton Rouge. All they say because he failed to separate fantasy from reality.
Zachary had stated to officers he had been playing the video game Grand Theft Auto and wanted to see if it was as fun in real life.
The trouble deciphering between fantasy and reality comes when playing violent video games because there are no real consequences for behavior that is unacceptable in today's society. Everyone always blames video games for aggressive behavior, but what about television and movies? Douglas Gentile, a psychologist at Iowa State University, believes that even passive media like TV or movies can have about the same size effect. Although children are not physically interacting with violence while watching television like they are when they play video games, they're still processing the information. Gentile states that basically what we're coming down to is learning, and it seems we don't learn particularly differently from video games than we do from TV or movies. Although violent video games can have some effect on violence in children, it cannot be deemed as the direct cause. This study is correlational, not causation, because there are many factors that aid in people committing acts of violence. Through extensive research of this topic, I have come to the conclusion that violent video games do affect children's prosocial behavior and levels of aggression.